don't be scared to be transparent about both the good and the bad. Nobody's perfect, and if you have an off year or take a step in the wrong direction, I think your stakeholders and audiences will appreciate it more than if you sugarcoat everything or sweep things under the rug. If you say you're perfect all the time, no one's going to believe you, and then ultimately it's one other takeaway is just to have the data to really back up what you're saying and where you're at in your sustainability journey.
Hello, welcome to Sustainability Voices, the podcast dedicated to exploring the impactful stories behind the voices driving sustainable change. I'm Patrick Obeid, founder of a climate tech startup and your host for this series. In today's episode, we will explore the importance of transparency with Sam Shiroff and Christina Sivulka from EnerSys. Stay tuned as we uncover various facets of sustainability, voice by voice. Christina, Sam, we're so glad to have you with us today.
Happy to be here, Patrick.
Thanks for inviting us.
Absolutely. Really excited for this conversation. Christina, I would love to jump right in. Could you define what we mean by sustainability communication?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the question, Patrick. Sustainability communications is all about being transparent about, your sustainability strategy, your goals, and how you want to reach those goals. But more importantly, beyond the definition of what it is, we really like to talk about why it's important. So for us, it's really all about translating our sustainability efforts into ways that resonate with certain audiences without all the acronyms and the jargon that come in the sustainability ESG space. And it's really important to kind of translate it because we need a variety of our audiences to understand sustainability and how it impacts and affects them and their unique roles.
Thank you for that, Christina. Maybe a quick follow-up question. Can you maybe give us a few examples of different audiences that you're communicating to?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of audiences that are interested in sustainability, and we do communicate and report specifically for them. We've got investors. That's a huge audience. They want to know that the companies that they're investing in are engaging in sustainable and ethical business practices. You've got ESG factors that give investors a more holistic view of our performance, and it allows them to make more sound investment decisions. So investors are a really big stakeholder we frequently communicate to. Our customers are another big one. They value sustainability. They want to know that our products are efficient. They want to know what we bring to their bottom lines and their value chain. Another big stakeholder is our employees. They want purpose-driven work. They really want to know that the company that they work for is doing right by them, but also by the environment and the greater global climate. And then also the communities where we operate, where we have physical locations and the community members that live in those locations. Our employees have families that live there, and they want to see that the company that they work for is having a value add and a positive impact where they live.
Thank you, Christina. I loved all the examples. I would love to pivot a bit towards what some other companies and maybe, for companies that are just getting started on their reporting and on their communication strategy. Would love to hear from you, Christina. Why is it important for companies to communicate their sustainability performance transparently?
Yeah, I think transparency is such a big thing in the sustainability space. So companies, when they're just getting started, you kind of want to be transparent about the baseline and where you're at. And as you grow and, execute on your sustainability strategy, having that transparency as to what that strategy is and what you're doing for that strategy, it gives more meat and credibility to what you're doing as a company. So it's one thing to say what your goals are, but continuously reporting on how you're working to meet those goals and what your tactics are to execute on those goals. It gives you that credibility. So I do think it's important for any company in any space to have that transparency, especially when it comes to their ESG goals.
Thank you so much, Christina. I would love to maybe double click on some tactical examples or some work that you've been doing at EnerSys in the last few years to be able to ensure transparency in your sustainability initiatives?
Sure. Yeah. So we've got a variety of things going on. We regularly have a sustainability report, so that's annual. We also report regularly, or we fill out the CDP questionnaire. We have an annual TCFD report, and then on top of those more formal reporting structures, we offer a lot of other external communications for all of those stakeholders. We are frequently talking about our sustainability goals on social media. We also have a blog, two blogs actually on our website. One's called Stories We're Sharing, where we share individual sustainability stories about things that are happening with the company. Like, for example, one of the stories we had recently was about how our employees within the Poland plant are upgrading equipment to be more energy efficient. So it kind of quantifies our savings in these small incremental steps towards our larger goals. Our second blog is called People Powering Sustainability at EnerSys, and we like to highlight different people throughout the company and what they're doing to be a part of sustainability, even though it might not be in their direct job titles. So people at the plant level, if they have an idea and they're executing on that idea, like recycling cardboard, that was a story that we featured pretty recently as well. And so it's kind of giving people a platform and highlighting these individual stories that, even though they are incremental, when they are added together, it kind of contributes towards our goal of being net zero by 2040 for scope 1 and 2050 for scope 2. So we have a bunch of different channels that we use to address the curiosities of our different stakeholders that I listed before, but then also give some of our people a platform and empower them to continue to make progress towards our sustainability goals.
I love hearing all of that, Christina. I would love to double click and talk about how transparency in your reporting and transparency in your communication can be perceived as an opportunity rather than just a burden or an activity that a company needs to just check the box or conduct. Sam, would love to hear from you. How does transparency benefit your company's reputation and stakeholder relations?
Yeah, well, Christina was doing great, but I'm happy to jump in, Patrick. I think I want to take a step back and also tell your audience, we jump really quickly into the reporting and the transparency. And to start out by saying the first audience for your transparency is internal. The biggest argument is to say, well, if we're not already measuring our energy, water, carbon footprint at a local, regional, and global level, you might be missing simply opportunities to save money, identify inefficiencies, and really do what normal businesses do, which is reduce waste. Okay. And then thereafter, you can begin to benchmark yourself against others who are in a similar sector and recognize, are you where you should be? Are you ahead? Are you behind? And why? And also perhaps identify where you may be unique. So these are benefits that can accrue, let's call it by internal reporting at the very least. And then you create a more disciplined organization once you start publishing that externally, in large part because once you start publishing data, you want to demonstrate that it's at the very least stable, but ideally improving, right? So that's, Christina talked about the various different abbreviations, and those are all the frameworks you might use, you probably should use at the very beginning. And then, once you have that robust foundation of high integrity data, a little bit of the muscle memory it takes to start reporting and overcoming some of the often existing reticence to do that, you can really start generating a narrative. And for EnerSys, we make energy storage batteries, and there's services around that. And we were always known for our reliability and our durability. We weren't quite front of mind on sustainability, but it's a new ability that we ultimately have. And by being transparent, by showing where we're making really significant successes, or in areas where, hey, this is tough, right? It's hard to make those incremental improvements. We generate a higher level of trust among all of our stakeholders that Christina listed before.
No, this is great, Sam, and yeah, I think we are creating a new language a new way of doing business, and a lot of it is new and burdensome, but at the same time, it can be very opportunistic and very strategic for your business to get started early. Perhaps one follow-up question for you, Sam. How can sustainability reporting be viewed as an opportunity rather than a regulatory compliance? And maybe one more follow-up question to that. If you can give us tactical examples on how reporting and communication and transparency was able to generate economic value for you at EnerSys.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's becoming a regulatory obligation if it already isn't, depending on your jurisdiction. So, let's face it, that's where it is. You need to be prepared for it, and there's frankly no getting around it. I tend to be of the opinion is get ahead of it. You can't brag about being regulatory compliant. But if you're faster, you sometimes can a little bit. And at the very least, you reassure your key stakeholders, your customers, your investors. When it comes to the benefits out there, it's nice to get the ratings and rankings recognition. We happen to have been recognized by Newsweek, by the Department of Energy, a couple of others that are out there that, some awards that we've received, which certainly I appreciate. I know our management appreciates, and I think our customers appreciate it. And it burnishes our reputation. I know our employees are increasingly proud to work for an organization that isn't just a good employer, but is a good citizen. And those things are hard to specifically quantify into dollars and cents, but we do know that lower turnover is good for the business. We do know that a greater number of individuals interested in working for our company is good for the business. We know that when customers or potential customers see our sustainability performance is aligned with their goals, it's good for the business. And that's an overall, at least some people call it a green halo. But we also know that increasingly our own salespeople are interested in understanding the messages that they can communicate one-on-one to their customers. And to me, that says that has top line through to bottom line impact.
I love all these examples, Sam, and I think we are at a pivotal point, in history in a way, because a lot of consumer demand is going to shift towards more sustainable products. We were seeing that in Europe. I think we're very quickly going to start seeing that in North America as well. So thank you so much for providing those examples. Christina, would love to go back to you and address this for companies that are just beginning this journey of sustainability reporting. What are some of the starting points for establishing sustainability reporting practices?
Yeah, of course. So a couple things. I think one of the big ones is we like to say go slow to go fast. You kind of need to bring the company along with you. Everybody who's a sustainability practitioner kind of knows what you need to do to start to build out a sustainability program at a company, but not everyone at that company knows, especially if you're just starting that department. So you kind of have to get a sense of where everyone's at, what their level of understanding is, and bring them along with you on that journey. And make sure that they have a really good understanding of what needs to be done. The second thing is to build everything that we do or you do on a robust foundation of high integrity data. And Sam mentioned this before, but sustainability is about storytelling, but to tell that story, you need to have the data to back up that story. And beginning to collect that data is really, really vital, especially because you need to make sure it's audible, traceable, and accessible. We're big fans of ESG Flo because it allows us to do just that. And then once you have that data, it's amazing how people start to pay attention to it. They start looking and finding patterns. They start thinking, wondering why certain numbers are the way that they are. And we also like to say that what gets measured gets managed. So the data is a really big part of that. And then the third thing is, sustainability is about the business. It's not something separate. So make sure you understand the business that you're working for and make sure the people who are running that business and that company understand how sustainability can also help them achieve their goals for the greater organization. And so once you start realizing and showing those synergies, I think people within your company are more likely to have more buy-in. And that's really, really helpful for when you're starting a department.
Thank you, Christina. Super helpful. Perhaps one quick follow-up question for our audience here. Would you mind giving us maybe a quick overview of some of the functions that you interact with the most at EnerSys?
Yeah, we work across a variety of different departments at EnerSys. EHS, the Environmental Health and Safety team, we work really closely with them. The operations team probably even more closely. You can't, Sam and I can't just show up at a factory and start, switching off gas burners. We need to have the buy-in and help from our operations team and engineers. And again, having that data and having, their processes and the energy for those processes measured is a really, really big help for making progress towards our goals. We also work really closely with our human resources team, especially within for the S function within ESG. But ultimately, we work across almost every single department within the company, and having that, those interpersonal relationships and communications across the company have been absolutely vital to, executing on our strategy towards our goals.
That's great. Thanks, Christina. Sam, maybe over back to you. Would love for you to talk about some of the major challenges companies face and any advice that you may have on how to navigate them.
I mean, there are countless challenges, Patrick. I mean, and there's the standard any type of change management, understanding how to get stuff done. It's not infrequent that the person put in charge of sustainability is somebody who's may not be an expert on sustainability, but knows how to get stuff done at a company. It's a question that you might want to ask if you're interviewing for your job: is how do things get done here? It's not always straightforward. And in this circumstance, almost always sustainability teams are lean. That's a nice way of saying small. And you have to influence without authority. One of the things I've learned over my career is that at the very least, half my job is communication, at least. I say this until I'm sick of it, which is that by the time you're sick of saying something, it's the first time anybody's actually really heard it. And so you need to keep up that consistent cadence of communication, education, patience. I know these sound like odd challenges, but the reality is that most people in our field see a sense of urgency. And that goes back to what Christina said about sometimes going slow to go fast. You can only go as fast as your company is willing to. But you need to build your snowball so that it's robust, so that once you get it rolling, that it isn't fragile, and that you can keep it going and get that momentum up and going. And, realistically, let's face it, the new regulatory pressures create an obligation. And so there's no slowing down in terms of those deadlines on the one hand, but on the other hand, getting from the risk mitigation, this is all we need to do, to the opportunity creation, which is if we did a little bit more, we might find that all of what we've invested starts to pay back. Finding that rhythm, building and creating and communicating in a way that really talks to the people who are ultimately going to be your strongest allies. That's an advice. It's very high level. I've had conversation with my peers who are running into challenges, and then we can kind of drill down. But I would imagine that what I just said sounds pretty familiar to almost anybody starting something new at an organization. But ultimately, and maybe that's a comfort because it means it can be done, right? And so those are the challenges. And helping people understand that challenges become opportunities with the right amount of effort, focus, and understanding is, I think, the trick.
Thank you for this, Sam. And I think I was reading a framework a few days ago in terms of how different organizations view sustainability. Some view it mainly as just a compliance check-the-box activity. Some view it as a strategic advantage and they have a separate team, and some have like an embedded sustainability philosophy in every single function, in every single activity, in every single product that they make. And I'm glad to see that EnerSys is in that third camp, and sustainability is something embedded in every single decision that you make at the company. And loved hearing examples from you and Christina during this episode. Perhaps Christina, back to you. Would love to maybe look ahead, focus a bit more on the future. How do you see the evolution of sustainability communication and reporting. What trends or innovation should companies be aware of?
Yeah, I really would like to see increased sustainability communications. I do think that companies should be proud of their progress, but I'd also like to see more evidence of that progress. Greenwashing is a real problem. If you're like Sam and I, or a sustainability professional, and you're in this world, you see it all the time. You notice it once you see it for the first time. And so I really do think that people need to back up what they're saying instead of just saying things. And then with that, I'd like to see more transparent reporting of both the good and the bad, and increased accountability with that. So ESG Flow is how we're measuring our progress in an audible way. It's helping us stay accountable on our journey and allowing us to be as transparent as possible with our stakeholders. And I'd like to see other companies also be as transparent as possible and kind of hold themselves accountable.
Thank you, Christina. Sam, perhaps from you, would love to hear, how should companies prepare to meet the demands of this evolving landscape?
I'm thinking in terms of a Venn diagram, right? And one is the business, right? And if you're a sustainability professional, you need to understand the business. If you're a business professional who's been given a sustainability mandate, you need to understand sustainability. And the overlap is very significant. It's not 100% because not every sustainability issue is going to be material to your business. But you need to create that Venn diagram, identify where you're good, identify the gaps, and start filling the gaps, right? It's a not unusual business process that we do with a lot of different things. And do so in a way that identifies, once again, opportunities for the organization. You can't do that without the data. You can't do that without understanding what drives the individual parts of the organization, speaking their language, translating your sustainability jargon, avoiding the sustainability jargon, into the language of this person sitting across from you, and help them understand how what you're trying to do helps them do their job. That's how you do it. Everything else are the details. You got to know the details, but getting there is a matter of, like I said before, of patience and preparation, and that starts with data, and it continues with storytelling, and then it's just about good management, goal setting, and then execution.
That's great, Sam. Thank you so much for that framework. Super helpful for us. This has been a great conversation. Perhaps maybe before we wrap this up, I would love to leave our listeners with maybe one or two key takeaways that they should remember after they finish listening to this episode. So maybe Christina, I would love to hear from you first, and maybe Sam after. What are some key takeaways that you would like our listeners to remember about the value of transparency and sustainability?
Yeah, I'd like to say don't be scared to be transparent about both the good and the bad. Nobody's perfect, and if you have an off year or take a step in the wrong direction, I think your stakeholders and audiences will appreciate it more than if you sugarcoat everything or sweep things under the rug. If you say you're perfect all the time, no one's going to believe you, and then ultimately it's one other takeaway is just to have the data to really back up what you're saying and where you're at in your sustainability journey. Sam, anything to add?
I would only add that I think it's important to not just be transparent externally, but also internally. Explain what it is that you can know. I'll use as an example Scope 3. No one can get Scope 3 perfect if you're a sizable organization. Help your senior leadership understand. I mean, what I said is, look, we're going to publish our data, and then we're going to revise it and revise it again and revise it again. And that's not a mistake. That's part of the process because we know we're going to get better and better at it as we go along. And there are a lot of things like that. And don't pretend that this can be perfect. Make sure that you get your allies and your leadership to understand that they're on a journey. And otherwise, just keep, fight the good fight, but do it at a smart pace.
Christina, Sam, thank you so much for being with us today. Your insights have been incredibly valuable. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. This has been truly a very insightful session. I learned so much. I'm leaving it feeling very energized. To our listeners, thank you for joining Sustainability Voices. We hope you've been inspired to think more critically about the transparency of sustainability in business. Until next time, keep striving for clarity and openness in your sustainability efforts.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Patrick.
This is the Sustainability Voices podcast. You can find all episodes of the show at esgflow.com, Spotify, YouTube, Google, and Apple Podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd like for you to subscribe to stay connected. I look forward to welcoming you on the next episode of Sustainability Voices. My name is Patrick Obeid. You can find me on LinkedIn. Thanks so much for listening.